Yeah? Oh, we can start 5 minutes early. Oh, okay. Yeah, we can start now. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming for my first ever panel. It's called Let's Chat Mental Health. First and foremost, my name is Kimberly Magana, aka La Colocha, whichever one you prefer. My personal pronouns are she, her, and I work at a middle school as my 9 to 5, and 24/7 I'm an artist. So yeah, first we can go ahead and get started with you, and we can introduce.
Yeah, sorry, it's like my first time using these microphones. But anyway, hi everyone, hola. My name is Denisse Alanis. My Instagram is @bikeNot if you want to follow me. That was not really necessary, but my pronouns are she, her, hers, AIAS. So I am a member and activista with Mijente and Familia Trans Queer Liberation Movement. I also work in nonprofit, and my background is mostly being an advocate for those in detention centers and survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence.
Okay, hi. My name is Jocelyn Moguel. I also go by Joss. I use exclusively they, them, and I forgot to say they, them in Spanish, but it's A and AX. But I'm pretty much the co-founder of Xicanx Crybaby, and I'm also the main vocalist for Mirage. Demo's not out yet, so not till summer. And also, I'm a 2-time domestic violence survivor, and I guess I can talk about my journey of mental health since I've kind of been through that system, between that healthcare system since I was like 11. So I have some experiences. So yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Gradilla. You can call me Jackie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm one of the co-founders of Tiendita Collective. We're a body positive organization for youth of color in East LA, Boyle Heights area. Been around for 3 years. We're fairly brand new. When I'm not doing that, I have a job. I work at a school. I'm a one-on-one with a student with autism. So I am now studying to get my credential in special education. And yeah, I'll go into a little bit more of that later on. But yeah, so going to school, trencitas, and my real job.
Hey y'all, is this working? Okay. Kind of anxious right now. But my name is Gradilla. Actually, another member from Trencitas Collective, which she had mentioned is a body positivity program for youth of color within East LA, Boyle Heights, and also I attend community college at East LA. So right now I'm trying to get my degree in sociology and maybe child development as well, so maybe double major. Other than that, my direction right now is working with youth. I worked at Legacy LA, mainly with kids who are on the verge of trouble, but need some guidance, and a lot of them have social workers that they work with directly. So, and I feel like, as well, just kind of trying to find my own guidance as well. So, yeah, thank you for coming. I appreciate that you guys were part of this panel. I think it's really important for women of color to talk about mental health because through my own journey with my mental health needs, I figured out like how stressful it is to actually even start that journey. It's really easy to talk about, get mental health or self-care and self-love, but in all reality, it's really expensive and it's really difficult, and it can be scary sometimes if you're doing it alone. So first, I'd like to ask all of you guys, what motivated you to be a part of this panel? So, like, what got you interested in being a part of this? And it can start with anybody.
I know for me personally, so I have bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed with it about 3 years ago, and I have one side of my family, it's severe mental illnesses from schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and growing up with like a Latinx family that was undocumented, it's something that being told as a child, my first time that I just have a lot of experience of being like having a therapist, being, do I take medication, do I not? Also being like a queer activist, I found out, we talk about spaces that are inclusive, but then like I get very overstimulated. I take medication, and it's really important to have that conversation to know it's like some of my quirks, it's really me trying to make sure that I'm like my emotions and my illness doesn't take over my body. And so I think for me it's really important, like this is the first time I've fully disclosed to an entire group of my mental illness. I usually talk about it either to my, people that I'm close to, but I think, I don't know, the first time that I was given a diagnosis, I was like 10 years old, and I had, done some stuff, and like, I want to just be able to talk about, this is who I am. I mean, it's a part of me, but I'm not the illness. And also too, doing grassroots work, we absorb a lot of secondary trauma, and from hearing from everyone is that we're all doing badass work for our comunidades, for Black and brown people, and we are absorbing stuff and releasing energy. And so how do we take care of ourselves when it's still viewed as a massive stigma?
And what motivated me primarily through this panel was me and Colocha did a panel at LB's Zine Fest. It was wonderful. It was like the similar topic about zines and our mental health and how it like helped us. I initially made Xicanx Crybaby as a response to my own secondary trauma of an abuser within the hardcore scene. And it was like, I didn't know how to react to this. And I found like a solace and a home within that community, but I also found a lot of secondary trauma, a lot of pressure, and a lot of pain that I still have to unpack, because as someone who is feminine, especially hyper feminine in a very dominant punk scene, hi to my friends over there, they know that group chat. So I have to know how to basically separate myself from that, and I have to know how to heal, even though myself is like, not gonna lie, punk and hardcore saved my life. I would have literally been dead at 13. I'm not kidding. And basically like experiencing a lot of abuse, a lot of sexual violence. Oops, trigger warnings. This whole panel's a trigger warning, but just ignore it. It's all serious stuff. But just like learning how to basically heal from that secondary trauma, learning how to heal from that, even though it's yes, punk isn't a place to express yourself, but it's also a place to make sure that you take care of yourself no matter what. I've literally seen friends of mine in the scene die, OD, get hurt, and it's a lot to take in. But it's like for myself, making Xicanx Crybaby, I relate to someone, one another, if it's in a zine, like in a button, or it's even like a glance, and I'm like, oh my God, I just saw you at the Zine Fest, and now you're here, I want to exchange information. So.
I'm here today because, Colocha invited Trencitas, and originally, we're kind of like iffy because some of the other members are here at Zine Fest today, but I was like, okay, I know it's a hard topic to talk about, but it's important because like our youth do not get to hear about this a lot in their homes. I am first generation. My dad immigrated from Mexico, my mom from El Salvador. So I've seen firsthand how in our communities growing up, we never talked about mental health, we never talked about body image. It was always kind of just swept under the rug. And that's a reason why I'm here today, and that's a reason why me and a couple other folks co-created Trencitas Collective, because it's so important. And most of the mainstream body positive groups are just white cis people, and it's like, no, that's not what I see, that's not what like people in the organization see. We see past that, and it's time for us to start talking about these topics. I, as someone who has more resources now, to invest in the community and our youth.
So I just want to add a fun little fact. This is actually my sister. So a lot of it, like she had mentioned, obviously, like our parents and how everything's being swept under the rug. But personally, I feel like I gravitated to this panel. Well, at first, I was kind of like, I feel like I'm not much of a go-to person on this topic. But at the same time, like as an individual, we tend to do our own practices of healing. So, which I'm finding, I'm seeing that I'm doing that every day as I wake up, because it's so difficult for me to get out of bed. And as well, I tend to do a lot of these practices only because I've been a victim of being in a domestic violence relationship, domestic violence, physical and verbally. So I feel like a lot of the times certain memories come back to me, and it's hard, especially when you don't really have the resources or like the money, therapy, or anything like that to like that I can actually just go to the event. But I feel like as an individual, I try my best to cope, and as well, like I'm a part of Trencitas, which all my girls, oh my God, they're like, I love it when I have conversations with them, because it can just like, I know I'm safe in a safe space. I know that whatever I do tell them, they'll keep a secret, or they will make me reflect that, hey, you made it, and it's so beautiful. And thank you for being here with us today.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I can definitely relate to that because I work with students. One thing that you guys kind of all touched up on was like how difficult it was to talk about mental health, which is why I created this panel, or I wanted to do this panel. What challenges do you think that women of color face in terms of like getting mental health help, or even reaching out to somebody?
I think it's a difficulty of being perceived as loca or crazy, estás bipolar,
Angry.
no enojada con todo. And basically just like that anger is like, we're seen as angry. And we have a lot of reasons to be angry. There's like 500 years of colonization. I'm mad about it. I have to hold on to those forever. So I'm mad at white people looking at my table like this. So I'm mad at that for many reasons.
Yeah.
So, shade intended. But it's like, but basically it's like we have every right to access these resources, but at the same time when we seek these resources, we're looked at as crazy. And then my mom still is not even cool with therapy, and I've been in therapy since I was 12. She's just like, you still have to go to therapy? I'm just like, yeah. It's like, oh, there's a lot of underlying trauma. And especially when we like talk to our friends, or even like friends of color, we're like, oh, I don't know about that. Or like, sometimes your homie might call you crazy too. You don't want to be perceived as that because they've seen crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you define as crazy? As someone having a freak out, or someone having a freak out on the inside?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know what crazy looks like because everyone has a definition of crazy.
Yeah, I think too, like I fully recognize my privilege, the fact that I am a cis queer woman, I'm brown, I'm not black, in my access to resources, in terms of like therapy and seeing a psychiatrist and stuff. And so because I have had access to resources for about a decade, and with this new diagnosis that's still relatively new to me, my mother and I were very close. Like, she's my compa, she's my ride or die, and she's pretty legit. But because I have been on medication on and off for 10 years, and I have seen a psychiatrist, it's kind of thinking like, well, you already take the meds, you already do the stuff, so clearly this is fixed. So why are you still freaking out? Why are you still doing this? You know, they think it's like, the reality is whether you have a diagnosed illness or not, like, it doesn't go away, and a lot of people just assume like, okay, so why are you freaking out? Like, what's your problem then? You know? And again, I am saying this from a point of privilege with the access to these resources, and that's something too, like, in terms of my close family, you know, my familia is everything to me. And so even with my chosen family, you know, I received a lot of backlash from my queer compas when I told them that. They're like, well, that explains why you're so pissy all the time, you know? And it's even like, I think it's important for us, like, that just like the backlash, you know, even if we're in these very safe and inclusive spaces, or like the assumption it's like, oh, well, the medication doesn't fucking change shit. It doesn't remove it. It just means that, like, I don't have to use 85% to get up from bed, you know? Like, I'll admit, like, I take a lot of anxiety pills, and that works for me, you know? I take 5.5 pills a day to function, and that's what's working for me right now. But I do get embarrassed when I'm in a social setting and I'm like, oh shit, like, I have to take this medication now. And if I'm in a social setting, like, like, I feel like I'm gonna be judged for like popping a pill, you know? And so that's kind of my thing in terms of like, I have these resources, but then still receiving this backlash, like, just because I take the meds, like, it doesn't mean that I cannot, like, I'm still allowed to feel this. It just helps me manage it. You know, I'm constantly telling people, it's like if you have a fucking cold, you know, like, you have a fever. Well, this is just for me to reduce my fever. But it doesn't mean that, like, something can't trigger me. Like, I'm hella sensitive, already sensitive to begin with. And then again, too, with like, our bodies have been colonized, we're, with this political climate, you know, I know for me, like, the last week, just with the Black trans women that have been murdered, you know, the children under CBP custody being killed, the 1-year anniversary of Roxana's death, like, how do all that, like, I absorb all that, and it's kind of like, well, I can't just go ask for a higher dosage, because the outcome of that, too, is that, like, I'm gonna have experience severe numbness, you know, and then I don't get to be human. So I think that's something too, if someone discloses to you that they do take medication or they do see therapy, be very conscious about your words, like saying, don't be ableist about your language, you know, because like crazy is like, it fucking like scares me, I hate it. Like when I go hang out with my tios and they call like, oh, eres loquita, and they say that because I was a book nerd, but it's reality is like, they know I'm not normal. So like, just, if you're in these spaces, whether you're white, black, or brown, but it's just, it hurts a lot when you just throw crazy or you throw dumb, you know, or lame very easily, because it's, you know, you don't know what some people are struggling with or whether or not they have access to it. And if they do have access, like, a pill isn't really gonna like, change it. It's not gonna cure it. There's no fucking cure. So that's something we also need to acknowledge in our communities.
Yes. Go ahead.
You wanna go first, or?
So, just to add to that, since I am working towards becoming a teacher with credential, I still see my background work, and I always see it in a way where I see like my family, my parents, and how that lack of access for women of color was always there, like, and especially with language, like Joss mentioned, like using the word crazy or like, esa señora es bien loca. I heard that a lot growing up, and now I still see it, and luckily I'm finding communities where we're trying to battle those stigmas, but it's there's definitely more to go. Like there's so much work still to be done. Just lack of access, like growing up as like a low-income mujer, like it was hard to get like all the like Medi-Cal. You have to take like sometimes days off just to like figure out the forms. You have to like call all these fucking mental health people. You're losing money. Like
You have to go through like so many
fucking hoops. And I think that's one barrier for me. Like I've started and then like I stopped because it's just like, oh my fuck, there's so much. So yeah, definitely class is definitely another aspect to mental health. You know, there's so many barriers stacked against us.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing too within academics, since I know like majority of y'all in the panel are like teachers or community organizers. My highest form of degree is just an associate's, and that's pretty much it. And then me even like finding, like a lot of these universities offer therapy services. Reality, it's a bunch of like, honestly, I think it's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
I was gonna mention that
it's
too.
8, like my old school is 8 sessions. You have to call them, and that's it. You only get 8 sessions. Like you're not gonna solve or heal or talk about what's going on in 8 sessions. With my long-term therapist, it took me about 7 sessions to literally talk about my domestic violence experience to be comfortable enough to talk about it. Like 8's not enough. It's not.
Also, like with the schools and stuff, I know, like, again, another point of privilege where it's like I went to a small liberal arts women's college. Like I'm originally from the South, Arkansas and Georgia in our homes, and so what were my access like in Arkansas? Who could I have for therapy? And it's a lot of like white old Southerners, and it's like you have to like talk about your. Because that's the thing with therapy. If you decide to make that decision, like there's so much labor to do in finding the appropriate person. And you have to find your own resources and stuff. And like, I think I've had like maybe 5 or 6 therapists at this point. And like, for me, it's really critical. They gotta be queer and they gotta like understand like my identity as a brown woman. You know, they gotta be comfortable with me saying like, fuck white supremacy, fuck ICE. Because there's been times where it's like, yeah, what tools, what therapists, like I'm still searching for a therapist here and I've been here for 6 months and it's like, I'm trying to figure out who can I be comfortable with because once you enter therapy as well, it takes so much time to unpack everything. And yeah, it's like when I was in Arkansas, I found this great brown woman. It was super great. Like literally all my brown friends were seeing her. But the reality was too though, it's like one of my friends in the community did not like her because she was really triggered. Like that's the other thing too. It's like, just, you have to do your research and stuff. But yeah, like who are the psychiatrists, especially with psychiatry, like your therapist can't get you meds. And then, so if you go see a psychiatrist, you know, like who do you trust? Like I've had terrible psychiatrists. I've been on like horrible meltdowns because I got switched meds.
My psychiatrist is fatphobic as fuck, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah, my last psychiatrist was hella anti-black. And it just, again, like what are our options too? You know, if we do have access to those resources.
Yeah, go ahead. Are you gonna add something?
Go ahead. For myself, I don't know. I think for myself, there was a time where my longest stay in a mental health hospital was because I wanted to see an urgent counselor at my campus, because usually they have emergency therapy for like a certain block, and I was literally on the verge of dissociation, suicidation. Like, I have BPD, so like it's very terrible to go through that experiences. I know a lot of people like throw it around, but it's like, BPD is real, and a lot of the symptoms are very similar to bipolar, depression, anxiety. It's like you don't really know. You pretty much have like 10,000 demons fighting inside of you, and it's terrible. And when I wanted to see someone in counseling, they were like, we don't have a counselor today because they left, but we can talk to you to a cop. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? A fucking police officer? The last person I literally want to talk to, I'd rather talk to my mom than talk to a cop. In all seriousness though, I'd rather talk to my mom than to a police officer who openly has a gun on their belt, and if I literally dissociate and like hurt myself, they're gonna kill me in fucking school. And my friends are literally gonna throw benefit shows, and my like, I don't wanna think of that. And I don't wanna be a hashtag. And it's like, I chose to get 5150 and it caused a lot of pain, but at the same time, it was for my own safety. And it's like, I'd rather get the help from somewhere that I know I'm gonna get help at than to an actual police force that openly kills mentally ill people. There's like, I've literally seen mentally ill people get arrested, all they just wanted to have someone to talk to, or at least like someone to subdue them. It's terrible. It's like the fact that women of color have to be like, we have to be known as loca to get the help. It's terrible. It's just like, all I want to do is like someone to talk to and a professional to be like, hey, you may have some experience in BPD, help me out because I'm like freaking out right now. Instead, I just chose to get 5150 because it was my own safety. 5150 is basically a code of like to be on suicide watch for 72 hours or more. And if you're in that, I have Kaiser, so I was in the Kaiser hospital for like several days until the doctor says, hey, it's good for you to go home, you should be safe, here's a bunch of medication, and here's the therapist that you must see from now on. So that I have privilege for that too, because I'm under my dad's insurance, and not everyone whose parents have insurance. That's a lot of privilege that I personally have. Like, I'm going to acknowledge that right now, that I was very lucky that it wasn't as much money. I was lucky to get a fee waiver, because getting fee waivers too, you gotta jump through a ton of hoops.
Yeah.
It took me like 10 hours to at least have Kaiser not, like lower the fee down to $500 to a $5,000 ambulance ride that was only 15 minutes long. So,
Yeah.
and basically, if you are in a situation that you do need to be in at 5150, go to your nearest ER. That's all I have to say. And then they'll do it right there for you. It's either you stay in the ER or you stay in a state mental as hospital, depending if it's there in the area. And depending on the severity of your mental health condition. Because I don't want to see any of my friends or anyone that I know, or especially any woman of color, female of color, to go through state-sanctioned violence like a cop. So.
Yeah, I didn't know that emergency, like ERs do that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Sometimes.
Good to
Well,
know.
I think also too, like if you're undocumented, like do it if you have a safety plan too. So like also too, like I'm speaking from the perspective that I am a US citizen, but like if you are undocumented, you should always have a safety plan in case of like your health or an issue. So if you do that, just again, like just be aware, like what's your safety plan in terms of support.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
And if you're not on Medi-Cal, if you have no insurance, the state of California has to give you emergency Medi-Cal for at least 72 hours. That is literally state law. If a nurse doesn't give you that option, you gotta go to the nearest, you gotta go complain. They're supposed to give you at least a 72-hour option if you are uninsured.
Is that for permanent residents?
Pretty much anybody.
Okay.
At least anybody that I know of, because I know my father's undocumented, and at the time he had the 72-hour Medi-Cal. So you're supposed to apply within 1 month of Medi-Cal. So I'm not sure about the options of that, because I have Kaiser, so that's a bigger system to go through. But you're meant to have at least temporary Medi-Cal for within 72 hours or up to a month. So.
And going back to what you guys said about the police and how they respond to a lot of POC communities that do have mental illnesses or diseases, what do you think that society needs to now start doing in order to improve how we respond to POC communities and queer POC communities that do have mental illnesses and need mental health help?
The first is abolish ICE, abolish prisons.
Abolish ICE.
Don't call the cops. Do not call the cops.
Yeah. I don't know, I wanna like.
Make Medi-Cal more accessible, because I'm very fucking limited to what I do and where should I go get help? like, even me seeking for, I have seeked out for help and psychologists and all that, but it's so fucking difficult when you have Medi-Cal from the state, and it's like, oh, like, it makes me like so frustrated because I've tried so hard to like call up places and then just even meeting them, and oh my god, all of them are just bullshit. And I've done the whole like community college like resource therapist, oh my god, automatically boom, white fucking therapist. And I was like, and I tried, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try it. Just see what's up with her. And
But then you end up triggering yourself.
I ended up like sharing with her because that day I felt like I just really needed to vent to the point that I was like, you know what, I'll try her out, whatever. She's white, okay, whatever. And I remember just like sharing so much with her that I started like crying. And like she didn't offer like a fucking tissue or anything. And I was like, in my head I was like, bitch, like, I'm sorry. In my head I was like, bitch, like, you think you're fucking crying snot all over my nose and everything? And she's just like, looking at me like, and I even asked her like, are you supposed to give me feedback? Or like, I don't know what's going on. I've never like, I've always done this before, like, and so she was just like, no, I'm just supposed to like hear you out. And I just felt so uncomfortable after that day. I was just like, I feel like shit, yeah, like I don't know what to do, what else to do, except for maybe look into the community and like all these like women of color or people of color, LGBTQ community, like all of them, like I love what they do, and I love like how they just have these spaces and make the time and actually be like, hey, let's make like a women's circle or a men's circle or like, you know, and I feel like those spaces are more safe and sacred that I'm willing to go to my community and just like explore what's out there than to like go to someone licensed, yeah. And I, like, even till this day, like I said, I don't know all the answers, but I do my simple practices, as in like, it's hard for me sometimes to look in the mirror and be like, hey, you're beautiful. But like, I do my best and I try to say like, you know, like you're beautiful, you're worth a lot. You know, like let's try to go out there, try to put on a face, you know, sometimes, but it's hard and it's really hard. So.
Can you repeat the question? It was about
with police, how they respond to communities that need mental health help, and specifically with like POC communities and queer POC communities. Like, what do you think, like, as a whole society, like all of us, like, what can we do or what should we start implementing in order to help and understand how to respond to folks who do need help?
That's a hard question.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, does this like state funding going more towards like La Familia, like groups like that, organizations that are established, like they should get more funding. But then it's also like you still, I'm sure like they have to jump through hoops. Nonprofits have to jump through all these things to get the state funding. So it's
To
like
get private funding too.
yeah, to get private funding. That's why Trencitas Collective is like
Grassroots.
we're grassroots. Like we like fundraise. Like the community has really helped us and organized with us. So it's like
I think I've done it to y'all before too, cause I would have wanted Trencitas as a kid. I would have
Yeah,
wanted
for sure.
Trencitas as a kid. It would have like helped a lot of my issues where I didn't have to go seek through other people, especially older people, that will groom you. And that's a lot of my own underlying trauma was, I saw punk as an escape route. It's like, not gonna lie, it's like the greatest thing I've ever done for myself was either be like a chola from the 310 or be a cool punk from the 310 because all these cool dudes are doing it, and it's like, at the same time, for myself, I see a lot of women of color, especially queer women of color, get very jaded in the punk scene, especially even like white women get very jaded in the punk scene, to like explain what traumas they have to go through. I remember my friend who was white that I had a complex relationship with from Detroit got literally kicked out of all these spaces from Detroit from these white men because she wanted to expose this abusive man, and then she had to move to Santa Cruz, and it was horrible. I mean, I have personal like angst against her for what some stuff that she's done for me personally, but I feel her and I feel her pain, and it's a sucky thing too, is to like see other, like for me, I have to see white women as equal, because even though as a side view at birth, I see that they're still going through these difficult hoops, but despite that, they have a ton of class privilege, a ton of pretty privilege as well, so even a ton of color privilege as well too. Because they're white, you can easily have more access, or even want passing people of color too. Don't think I forgot about y'all. And they have more access than I do as basically a brown woman or femme of color that a lot of people see me as. And especially non-binary folks don't really get that access. Trans folks don't get that access. Black trans women of color don't even get that access either. So it's kind of like, if you have that access, give it to them.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that goes back to like what I was saying earlier, like if you have privilege, then use that privilege, take it back to your communities. Like even though I grew up low income and now I'm like, I can afford my rent, I have privilege. I am a cis woman. I have fucking a degree, I'm getting a fucking credential, but everything that I learned, like, at the schools, all the, like, information, I'm like, fuck this, like, I'm gonna give it all back to, like, the young, brown femmes, white femmes, like, everyone. Like, I'm not gonna keep it to myself, and that's what I see, like, that's where I have, like, some trouble with, like the state funding, you know, it's, as long as you use it wisely and you don't perpetuate these like systems of oppression, like until like, you know, everything is abolished, capitalism. Until then, like let's have like these concrete steps in working with our communities.
And it's also a thing to notice that things that preach anarchy, things that preach equality, all this stuff, people have to realize that you actually have to do the work and not just sing it in a song. Not just wear it on a t-shirt, wear it on a pen, wear it on a tote bag, wear it on your hydro flask with a sticker.
Your
You have to, basically your whole aesthetic, if you're honestly preaching it on the gram, it's not worth it. You're not really doing that. It's like what I tell men in punk especially men, what are you doing to protect women? What are you doing to protect queer men? What are you doing to protect trans POC in the punk scene? The fact that I've had friends that like, I know people that are higher up in punk that cannot speak out because this person has too much clout, this person has too much power. And it's basically like, why do I have to be in a scene that claims to fight power when I have to fight the dude that's in like some band? Or I have to like basically call out this person knowing the fact that I will face tons of repercussion. That shouldn't have to be like that, especially in a space that preaches anarchy. And especially in the nonprofit sector too. In the activist space too. And basically in all activist spaces too, what are men of color, what are men doing in those activist spaces, protecting women to not face that secondary trauma? Because not gonna lie, I faced way too much of it, and I really can't go back until I have basically reconciled that trauma. I mean, I like punk, and I will still forever go back, because it's like, that's what I love to do, that's my support group, and that's that. At the same time, I'm not gonna ignore the people that that are like more marginalized than myself, that if I know how to navigate this space, I'm gonna take whoever I can to follow along with me, because that's what it's about.
And going back to Jackie, what you were saying about giving back to the youth, right? You both work primarily a lot with students of color, like the youth. I think you work at a middle school too, right?
I work at
Elementary. So
I just volunteer, that's roles count mostly.
in your working with students of color, like, do you foresee any challenges, or do you already see them facing challenges in terms of getting mental health help, or even having to, comfortably speak out that, oh, like, I have anxiety, or I keep thinking about self-harm, and they're not properly getting the help that they need? So I see that a lot in my school.
I see it a lot in general.
Also too, with like older generations, is something that organizing in like rural southern places, we tend to forget about, like the madres and tias, like the older generations, because it's like, we do a lot of, in Arkansas there's a lot of youth programming, but what ends up being forgotten are, okay, what about people that are 45 plus, 55 plus, 60 plus, and they've lived in like rural Arkansas for the last 25 years, where their access is to, like, youth is just as important, but also
On the other side.
on the other side of things, making sure that we have services, programming, dismantling that like really thick ass stigma, that's something where I know it's really important to do a lot of like grassroots, like within the community, for the community. My mom leads it's a women's circle. They don't call themselves a women's circle, it's just they meet up for brunch once a week, they talk and stuff, and then like they let themselves cry and they meet up at a space, but they don't call themselves a women's circle, I've told her, it's like, what you're doing is a fucking empowerment circle, and she's like, nah, we're just having like a whistle, like that's Exactly, so a lot of us are doing these healing practices, but especially with older generations, they're not ready to be like, no, that's your thing. That's like the young generation thing, but we also should acknowledge like what these older folks are doing too. It's like, when you go and you talk and you like, it's really powerful. What can we do? We need to work like within the state, against the state, for this, I don't know about for the state, but
You got yourself.
But especially with like communities of color, like seeing, I've seen a huge difference between LA and like Arkansas and Georgia, like my plan is to like learn from here and take resources back, because LA is cool, but I'm a Southern Belle. And so, but that's what like making sure some of these folks are already doing the work. We just need to, not we, but like we as a community be like, you're fucking dope, like you're not the visa already, like you don't even have like the business title with this whole like wokeness phase. It's like, my mom's a fucking chingona, she's been one since she was like 12. And so I think too, recognize the elders in the community, call them out for their toxicness, their problematicness, but also too, some of these folks have been like working their asses off with limited resources, especially like the place I grew up in, it's mostly poultry plants, and a lot of Latinx folks are illiterate, but yet they're organizing, they're the ones stepping up to do marches and everything, and so I think recognizing what are folks doing already, don't be afraid to call them out if they're being homophobic, transphobic, but like some people are already doing this stuff, you just need to be like, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, exactly. Have you guys, or anybody heard of like Chisme as a form of self-love?
Oh my god,
Self-protection of women?
One of my closest friends, Ruben, of Creation Channel,
Chisme is just Spanish for like gossiping. But yeah, does anybody want to kind of chime in on like what do they mean as like chisme as a form of protection, as a form of like healing in terms of women of color? Because like you said,
I'm waiting for that. I know what to say.
And as she was saying that our tias, the older generation, they've been
because they're petty. It's literally meant because they have done something very dirty.
Yep.
And sometimes if I tell other girls in the scene, okay, this dude is not meant to be trusted, like I'll go Regina George on them, but this person is literally not meant to be trusted. And then when they're like, oh no, but then they get hurt, it's like, oh no, I'm hurt, I must warn another person. And another thing is to realize, like, me and my friends are just kind of laughing right now because we have a group chat, and then sometimes we just state other people in the scene and like, hey, this person isn't meant to be trusted, or like, hey, this person has a lot of clout, they only have this popularity because they have clout. And basically we have to protect one another within these people to basically enjoy ourselves, to not like have these traumatic experiences in the scene, or especially for like a lot of myself, I'm still recovering from trauma within my own mother, but it's also another reason I'm learning to forgive her because I know she has a lot of underlying trauma within herself, and that's something that we all have to recognize. How many of our parents have these underlying traumas they don't want to talk about? How many of them just like lash it out on you because they don't know how to control it, they don't know how to express it, they don't know where to get help, or they just like refuse to get help because they're a tough cookie.
Yeah. Going back on.
But in reality,
Sorry.
reality everything crumbles. Like, won't just crumble, cookies crumble. Eventually you snap and you have to realize, hey, I have to get help. It sucks to hit that rock bottom, but getting that help is far more better than hurting other people around you, and they have to get the help.
Yeah. For me personally, like chisme, or I even say shit talking is healing. I created a button. Shit talking is healing. But for me, chisme is like, it's a form of healing, but it's also a form that I can, like you had mentioned with parents, like that's a form of me connecting towards my mother. My mother is, she is very close person, like very closed up. But I've noticed that the more I've grown and the more I've been able to just like share a couple things with her, or just like God, like mentioned, she's Chismeando Gossipy. She like tends to feel like that warmth in her and be like, hey, I'm gonna tell my child a secret cause she's from El Salvador, so she came to the United States as a refugee from the war. So like I mentioned, she doesn't really talk about any of her past, so for her to just open up certain stories about her past, it's really awesome to see that within my mother. And as well even with my father, like, you think men don't love to gossip? Oh my God, they do love to gossip. And my dad is like he's a tougher shell, like, it's very hard for him to crack. Like, just open up, that's what I mean. Yeah, sorry.
That's something like my dad too. Sometimes I used to think that it was just him saying, I'm a Leo. But in reality, he's like a very tough person to crack.
Yeah. But he's like, I feel like that's just a way for us Latinos, or maybe just for anyone to be like, express yourself, you know? Once you know that, hey, like, I'm able to share something with this other individual, it's like, it's very awesome. And I think that's how it starts. You gotta plant the seed and able for a person to grow.
Do any of you guys have group chats and like things like that help you out?
And it doesn't always have to be either, like, you know.
We send memes or like.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
We change the group chat every 10 seconds.
Yeah,
We
that's
change the group chat every.
I think what's the name of it right now?
Alright, what's the name of
Keith
it?
was never an option.
Yes! That was me!
Yeah, I was, that's one thing that me and my cousins always talk about. Our group chat is literally our sacred, like,
yeah.
healing group chat where we talk shit and we always chismeando, but it's also like a really quick way of, like, if, let's say like I'm in crisis mode because I have like anxiety and I'm still working through it with my therapist on how to identify that and what that looks like. So if I'm in crisis mode, like, it's such an easy access to be like, hey, I need like somebody to talk to me like right now, like keep me grounded, and it's really quick for like one of them to be like, oh, okay, well, remember your 5 senses, or take a deep breath, go drink water, to like at least make sure that I'm okay. And I'm sure that applies to some of you as well, like group chats and chosen family, friends who support you.
I think that's the key thing of finding a family outside your family, you know, because that's like,
so true.
yeah, because like they just, when you find the right people to just like, you're able to make that group chat or able to take on another step with them, it's just like, you know, you found that comfort and just, I don't know, I mean just, yeah, I'm sorry.
I think I'm more introverted. I don't group chats like stress me the fuck out.
Which is okay.
Yeah, which again, like to each their own. Like you gotta find your own resources and everything. I'm more of like one-on-one. I talk to my grandparents every 2 weeks. I call my mom whenever she calls, really, because she puts me in red all the time. And for me, like in terms of my support, what I've learned, I've connected. Like I recently ended a relationship with someone where my mental illness was really difficult for them. Essentially, I was told that like this is too much for me, you know, and I was emotionally vulnerable with them, and they don't have a mental illness. And what I discovered from that is that my support system, I connect better one-on-one with folks that already deal with stuff. Like if you know what anxiety feels like I can vibe with you on that. You know, one of my closest friends, like she also has a couple mental illnesses, takes medication as well. Like those are people I've gotten along better, who I can reach out to. Because again, my experiences is that, you know, for me to be emotionally vulnerable with someone, like I'm a Chiona, I have to cry, you know, like
Which is your sign?
I'm a Taurus with a double Sag, so emotional.
I'm a Taurus rising, but I see Sun, Cancer, Moon, and I'm really unfortunate. I'm also a Venus in Aries, and I'm a literal nightmare.
So all those things. But yeah, I think also too, like in talking with your family, you know, like my abuser is someone in my family, and you know, I am very strict about my boundaries. I think what's really important too, when you communicate with people, you're very much allowed to say what your boundaries are, whether it's your friends or your family. You know, like my Holy Trinity are my grandparents, my widows, and my mom. But outside of that, you know, because my abuser is in my family, I have to have strict boundaries. You know, so achievement is good as well, but also you are allowed to have boundaries with people, whether they're blood or not, whether you're in the same space. You know, it doesn't matter if you've been like besties since like the fucking 5th grade, or your mom knows your whatever. Like when it comes to like mental health, like boundaries are sacred, and you're allowed to say what there are. And if people don't respect that, then go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I've learned that when I'm talking to a friend, I barely came across this. Just kind of asking, are you free? Like, are you able to talk? Because that is a key thing. Like you mentioned, like even though you are friends or are close or whatever, best friends, but still we do have to acknowledge that maybe this person isn't ready enough to have like this difficult conversation and like personally it's like, oh, like you might be having a meltdown, but like you have to like subconsciously think like, is this person ready to hear me out? So we need to reflect on that as well.
Or sometimes if you're in the wrong situation at the wrong time. For myself, one time my friend had a major freak out, and I'm like, oh, I'm big chilling with my friends at the rec center, all drunk and stuff, and then my friend, oh no. I'm just gonna step outside for 2 seconds and be like, are you okay? I'm drunk, but I'll hear you out.
Yeah, like alcohol too, like knowing your triggers and stuff, like
That's important.
you know, that's one thing for me. If someone says like, nah, I don't want to drink, like don't fucking pressure them.
Yes.
You know, like again, you don't know what they're dealing with. Like I've had an issue with alcohol. I had a lot of drinks at my work conference, and I probably shouldn't have, because I was in a space gonna take responsibility for that, but also too, if you're in a social setting and someone's like, I'm good. Now, if you're in a social setting and someone's already had 9 drinks, they ain't good.
Yeah, exactly.
This applies to anything, if it's at your local punk show, work conference, or even your local Zine Fest. Know your triggers, and especially know yourself when you're drinking, using drugs. Know who you are using and drinking with, especially if anything happens to that person when you're blacked out, or you're about to OD, or like the worst happens. Who are you gonna confide in when this happens? Because I've seen moments happen where I've seen people get abandoned when they're like passed out, when they're about to OD, and like their friend ditches them at a show or like at a party. And then sometimes I'm nice enough or my friends are cool enough to carry this person to the hospital or to their room or to their other closest friend. So like that's also important. Who are you having these drinks with? Who are you using drugs with? Who are you smoking weed with if the worst happens?
And your surroundings as well.
And the surroundings.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that's a good point at the end. I do want to open up just a little bit to the audience to maybe if you guys have any questions. We do have like about less than like 5 minutes to answer some questions if you guys do have any.
I'll answer questions on my Zine table, don't worry.
You'll see us walking around.
I'm Jackie, and it's weird, I just happened to stumble in here. I happen to be a provider, a mental health professional.
Hey.
And I see a lot of women of color, and first I want to apologize for bad experiences that you guys have had. But I work for LA Care, and according to LA Care Medical, you can have unlimited therapy as long as there's medical necessity. So all I can tell you is look for the right person. Some of us like me are open-minded. We're okay to talk to, and it's okay if you don't like someone to go and ask for someone else. It really is a matter of being advocate for yourself, and if you don't like something, speak up, and you always can go on to somebody else. There's a lot of us who are providers. We really want to serve this community. So thank you guys. I'm really happy that I was here. You helped me a lot to find out a little bit more about sort of what maybe some of my clients are feeling when they come to a white woman like me. But thank you very much.
I'm glad we were able to provide some insight on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
I kind of want to say something as a provider, if you're not, like, basically a non-marginalized group, do not apologize, just do it. Like what Shia LaBeouf says, do it. like actually be about it, actually be about what you're gonna do. If you are capable of providing service to said marginalized group, literally just do it. It's like, it takes a couple of seconds of your time. If you know providers that are good with women of color, trans women of color, especially in said other more traumatized triggers, be about it, go up to them and do your best and do your part, because that's what allyship is all about. If you're all talk, then we're not gonna listen. We're just gonna, do our own thing.
Anybody else have questions or?
If you want to support more Zine Stairs, there's a ton of awesome, amazing Zine Stairs at LAZF Fest. LAZF Fest, I want to thank them for literally putting on this panel. I want to thank Colocha for inviting us. Have a nice day.
Can I do one quick plug? So Familia TQLM is doing a demonstration this Sunday outside the downtown ICE building. We're doing a national week of action for justice for Roxana. We're doing events all throughout the nation. LA's event is on June 2nd. If you want more info, hit us up. Familia is doing the lawsuit against Roxana's murder. Yes, she was killed by ICE. And so if you want more info, holler or follow Familia TQLM on Instagram and all the social medias.
Yay, thank you. that look like?
I know.
Follow at Trencitas Collective
On Instagram.
on Instagram. We have a Facebook, we hardly post on there. So definitely go on Trencitas Collective.
We have Instagram.
We love Instagram. So DM us if you want to collaborate, if you want to donate money,
Yes.
give your.
And if you
that's
want
also-
to, and we also work with schools like with Denisse Alanis. But if you are like, if you're a teacher or you work at a school or anything, and you want us to do like a presentation, we also have a link where you can fill out and submit like what type of workshop would you like us to do, and so you can find everything on Instagram. And
If you do want their Instagrams, you can always come up to me, so that way I'm not,
And we'll be walking around the Zine Festival.
you can always come to me and I can give you guys their Instagrams as well. But thank you so much for coming. This is